Thank you, and welcome again. It gives me great pleasure to host our inaugural LinkedIn B2B Connect event here in the US. So why B2B Connect? Why now? Well, in February, LinkedIn launched our full funnel suite, targeting prospects all through the funnel. And for the first time now, marketers can really reach, nurture, and acquire prospects at every stage of the marketing funnel, all across the web and on LinkedIn. And we're going to continue to innovate and develop this suite. Much of what you'll hear today is about that suite and how that suite works with your prospects. And of course, we want to partner with you as time goes by, and that'll be a theme for today as well. So we've got a full agenda this afternoon, lots of content. You're going to hear from marketers on some of the ways that they're using content to engage their professional prospects, how they're nurturing and thinking about nurturing their prospects. We're going to talk about the changing consumer buying journey, some trends in the buying journey, and how you as marketers can tap into that changing buying journey, understand it, get ahead of it. You'll hear from marketers with real-world tactics, things they are practically doing to help accelerate their prospects, accelerate the way they're nurturing their professionals through the web, through their buying funnel. And finally, you're going to hear from LinkedIn CEO Jeff Weiner. He's going to talk about navigating the complex web and how to engage professionals. So all of that this afternoon, the next few hours. And with that, I'd like to turn it to our first panel, Insights from the Cutting Edge. And moderating this panel is going to be Kelly Kyer, LinkedIn's head of vertical marketing for technology. So Kelly Kyer. Here, you want that.
Thank you, Jonathan. It is great to be here today. I was going to introduce myself, but Jonathan did a fantastic job. As he said, I am Kelly Kyer, the global lead for the technology vertical for LinkedIn's marketing solutions. I'm excited to bring you insights from the cutting edge of marketing. We've got a good lineup, but there is a small program note and change. We originally had Parvez Patel from Grainger slated to speak today, but he had a conflict at the last minute. So rather than being insights from the cutting edge, it's turned into insights from the leading ladies of B2B marketing. We've got a great lineup of all women today, and it's going to be a really fantastic conversation. So why don't we start out the conversation by bringing these folks out. Our first presenter is Elissa Fink. She's the CMO of Tableau software, and she leads a team that is transforming data visualization and dashboards, basically changing how people understand and consume data, and more importantly, making it so accessible that it's actually actionable. Welcome, Elissa. Our next panelist is Alicia Dietsch from AT&T. She is our Vice President of Business Marketing Communications, and she comes to us. She's been with AT&T since 1991, which she didn't want me to tell you, but I think that's really exciting because it's very, very hard to stay in telecommunications because it's highly competitive, has lots of churn and lots of change, and she's been leading the team, sales and marketing with tenacity since 1991. So thank you for joining us, Alicia. Our third and final panelist is Allison Engel. She is the Vice President of Global Marketing for LinkedIn's Marketing Solutions team. And she leads a multidisciplinary, multi-channel team of product marketers, vertical marketers, social marketers, demand gen. And she's doing this for the Americas, for EMEA, and APAC. Welcome, Allison, to the panel.
Thank you.
So I think it's important in the spirit of true transparency that I tell you that Allison is my boss. So when you fill out those event surveys later today, just please be nice to me. Please be kind. So why don't we go ahead and get started? We have 45 minutes today where we're going to dig into kind of 3 key topics. But we want to leave time before the end of the session to take questions from the audience because we've got a lot of brain power on stage, and I know they have a lot of insights that they can share with you. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to lead with the buyer's journey. So the buyer's journey, we know that our customers and prospects are out there consuming content across multiple channels, multiple devices. how do you get your arms around where they're consuming and connecting with them and making sure that you've got the relevant content at the right place and the right time? Elissa, do you want to kick us off?
Sure. I mean, the buyer's journey is really critical. So I think it starts with first understanding it and trying to map it out, literally trying to figure out, like, what do people go through? And there's a lot of ways to do this. I mean, you can do it qualitatively, you can do exercises within your company, and you can do it quantitatively, literally with your website and trying to understand where people go through the funnel and then into your marketing automation system and then into your CRM system so that you can see them all the way to when they join your community and they become, hopefully, a brand advocate. So it's just really important then to be able to take that information, take it apart a little bit, because there's different segments have different kinds of journeys, and defining those different journeys is a bit of a challenge. But you will start to see clusters of behavior that you can work through. And then from there, what we've done is sort of say, okay, there are different stages, typical stages of a funnel. What are the types of content? How long do they spend in these stages? Who else from their organization or in this buying cycle is involved? So that you can start to really get a handle on what kind of content matters to who and when. So looking at the types of buyers you have, the types of funnels or journeys they take, all the way to customer, all the way to community, all the way to brand advocate, and then looking at what content rings the loudest with them. And there's a lot of ways to judge that. You have all your web-based behavior, of course. You have what kind of responses to different kinds of campaigns, and lots of anecdotal information, especially deep in the funnel. So we try to take it pretty seriously. On the other hand, it's also, we're all moving at like wicked fast, at the speed of light, it feels like. And so, don't get too hung up on, oh God, gotta have a journey before I can do anything. Because you know what? You gotta do some stuff before you can figure out what route they're following on the map that you've defined. So I don't know, how about for you? I mean,
yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, fundamentally, I don't think there's any one buyer journey. There's not just one buyer. So, in a company like ours, where on the one hand, on one day, we might be marketing smartphones to a customer. The next day, I might be marketing very sophisticated virtual private networks to care for their entire enterprise. The buyer journey for those two ends of the spectrum are super different, right? I also have, sort of an enterprise buyer journey and a small business buyer journey, very different. So, I am a big believer in get started, but once you get started, make sure you take the time to do the research up front. So as an example, a couple interesting things we're learning, and I'd love perspective on whether you guys are seeing this as well. Increasingly, our B2B buyers are taking much longer to make decisions. As a matter of fact, in the past 18 months, they're taking about 20% longer to make those purchase decisions, and 45% of them are taking more than a month, right? So understanding that and understanding what they're doing during that period of time is really critical. The other thing we're finding out is that more and more, by the time they get to the point of purchase, they've got a very short list of partners that they will want to entertain. And today, that is right around 2.5. So you have to do a really good job during that upfront part before they actually get to the purchase process to get yourself on that short list. So I completely agree with you, but I would say once you field an effort around the buyer journey, it's really important that you do that research to understand not just how well your programs are running, but really understand that customer, whether you journey map it or whether you do it on, a whiteboard with in your office.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think for our perspective is, I think solving for the buyer's journey is similar to solving a Rubik's Cube while you're on roller skates. Like there's just so many, different levers you can dial up or down, and the foundation of your buyer behavior is always changing. And so to simplify a Rubik's Cube on roller skates, it's a similar approach. I mean, we really, at LinkedIn, kind of try to break it down into 3 important steps. So the first is listening, the second is segmenting, and the third is aligning. And so for us, listening, similar to what you both were saying, is like, how do you really understand where your buyers are, take all the market and buyer feedback, and feed that into your product and go-to-market roadmap. So the listening piece of our customers and our behavior is really paramount. I think as marketers, it can be hard to strike that balance between kind of the inbound gathering intelligence, which is less visible, and then the outbound work, which is very visible to kind of your stakeholders. But it's an important kind of balance, I think, and a line to walk. The second piece is segmenting. And so obviously, segmentation is kind of B2B marketing 101, but now with all the data and tools and our own digital technology, you need to be layering even more behavioral data, more triggers into that segmentation to make it even more effective and getting to more personalization. The third piece is aligning. Obviously, you can't pull any of this off without clear alignment across all of our stakeholders, across sales and service channels. And so the alignment piece arguably is the most important because you can map a journey, you can deliver the content, but all of your channels aren't synced to the same goal of ensuring your customer success. It can all be for naught.
Well, and I think it's interesting that you bring up alignment because we talk about marketing, the buyer's journey, and it's kind of marketing jargon. But really, you have to be aligned with sales to complete that journey. So just quickly, how have you achieved alignment with the sales organization?
I feel so lucky because at Tableau, I have a partner in our head of sales that we are just in sync. And we understand our overall funnel, above the funnel, below the funnel. And we're very fortunate that we understand how. So our sales team right now values marketing. You know, they don't beat us up over your leads suck, and we don't beat them up over you never call our leads, and you know that whole traditional sort of trajectory that happens so often. So, but we focus very hard on it. We really focus on like, hey, how marketing and sales work together. We need to fill the pipeline. So we need to help them find opportunities or find the opportunities for them in ways that make sense for them to sell. Once they realize that we're there as partners together to make a success, and we're all measured, of course, on revenue. Of course, we all have different measurements, other measurements as well. The partnership theme evolves, and they come to us with problems. When there's challenges or when there's issues, we hear about it, and in a good way. They're like, we're having a problem with these territories or this segment or what have you. Let's work together. Let's make this happen. So we really work hard at the alignment, and it starts as good partnerships at the leadership level, not just the C levels, but also the senior levels, the VP levels, the director level, and the regional levels. It's like we're here to partner together, and I think the attitude makes a tremendous difference. Of course, then you better be able to deliver. So I think the other strength is, the other important thing is you as a marketing function, you need your tools, you need your database, you need your developers, you need your experts, you need the investments. And to imagine that you can do what sales needs or what the company needs in terms of revenue generation on like a small percentage of the budget is just, that's sad. It's a really sad thing, but a lot of companies I know look at marketing as an expense, not as an investment. So that's a whole nother mess that you have to get unscrambled so that you can get the resources to be an effective partner with sales.
Well, I am certainly going to bend your ear afterwards to talk about that fabulous partnership. Look, I think any relationship is basically an investment and takes work, and as you've described, but everybody has to commit to it. I would say we're on a journey, right? It's our sales and marketing journey versus the buyer journey, right? And we've got a very large direct sales force. We've got 9,000 feet on the street sellers who are at the front lines carrying bags across a very complicated portfolio of services. And, occasionally we change the priorities on them, right? So, what they might have been full out on yesterday, we might say, no, today we're going to go take that hill because we have to, because the business needs change. And I think, that creates some natural tension, and I'm sure many of you feel that natural tension as well. For us, I think there are a couple things that we still need to work on as fundamentals of that relationship. One is, from a CRM standpoint, it's never good when you've got 3 or 4 CRM systems, right? And, just being honest, we're dealing with a world where I have multiple CRM systems. I've got one CRM system for sales, I've got one for marketing, I've got one for my telequal team, I've got, a different system that my alternate channels use. It's really hard to get line of sight and therefore have credibility when your CRM systems don't all talk to each other. So that's a really important thing. The other thing I'll come back to is a point you made around leads, right? The first step in recovery is admitting you have a problem. So I'm going to admit we have a little problem here. we call everything a lead, right? We call the stuff that comes out of our marketing automation behaviorally triggered programs leads. Sometimes we call them sales qualified leads, sometimes we call them marketing qualified leads, sometimes we call them straight up leads, and then sometimes when we pull a list from our database of customers that exhibit certain characteristics based on what they already buy from us that would make them good candidates for another service, we hand those to sales and call them a lead. So we're handing sales a wide variety of opportunities that have all been vetted to varying degrees. So again, I think from a confidence standpoint, that's not putting us in the place we need to be. I think we've made some great efforts, and we are very lucky that we have a good partnership with our sales organizations. But when it comes to this particular area and the confidence they can have in the very specific opportunity we hand off, that's still an opportunity space for us. And certainly I would love to say that at the end of that whole process, I know absolutely that a particular sale was influenced by something we in marketing did. Go back to 4 CRM systems, that makes it hard to know absolutely. So when it comes to business confidence, the overall business, really truly valuing every dollar you're spending, that's a little harder to do as well.
That's actually a great transition, because one of our next topic is around spending and technology. You mentioned CRM and you talked a little bit about automation. IDC predicts that in 2015, we're going to spend $22 billion on marketing technology. And by 2018, that's going to be up to $32 million. So where are the places, one, where you're investing in marketing technology, and two, how is that impacting your marketing mix, and where are you investing in your marketing mix? Alicia, do you want to kick us off?
Sure, I'll start. I mean, I think the way that we think about it is the holistic stack, right, to deliver the success that your business needs, right? So instead of only thinking about marketing technology in one box and sales technology in another, like what is the business technology we need to deliver on like a really modern, customer experience? And so certainly on the marketing side, it's world-class web presence, right? A platform that really enables agile content, A/B testing, kind of ad nauseum, and really being able to have also a very templated approach so that we can test and learn quickly and then scale what's working well globally. Certainly measurement is a constant kind of point of investment, and you have to be really mindful of like, what are you trying to measure? You can kind of spend all day trying to measure something and obviously not get to the right outcome. And so I think the measurement technology is crucial. And certainly on the sales technology, having any sort of bug or incorrect tagging in any sort of your technology, or the sales team using the CRM in a way that doesn't kind of tie to the marketing activity, like all of this again can be chinks in your marketing armor, and I think it all has to be shored up. I mean, a final piece would obviously be investing in all of your experiences to be optimized for mobile, right? For LinkedIn, more than half of our 380 million members around the world are coming through our mobile applications, and like all of our buyers, kind of regardless of what you are selling and marketing, are engaging with your content and your channels through their mobile device. And so making sure that you're spending the time and understanding how everything fits within a very small screen is really crucial.
Yeah, I would echo what you said. So I think those themes, of course, your online platforms, your channel is incredibly important. And while at AT&T we don't make that squarely part of our marketing function, those folks are incredibly important partners. And if that is not getting invested in the way it needs to, you're actually cutting your legs out from under you, right? But from a pure marketing perspective, I think marketing automation platform, critical investment for us. Of course, to the last conversation we just had, if you're not feeding that the right way with process, you have to make sure you're investing in that as well. We do have a pretty significant investment in analytics that we've been building up over the past few years that lets us understand not only the performance of individual campaigns, but one of the things we've actually spent quite a bit of time and money understanding is holistically the contribution of your mix. So not just what kind of ROI do I get on digital, but what ROI am I getting in a combination, this particular combination of digital and events and above the line, and to really understand how to couple all those things together in the most effective way possible. And you know, the last, and I hope we'll get a chance to talk about it, our other big investment area right now is our people. And you know, the upskilling us all, right? Marketing changes every single day, and if we're not keeping pace with that, you know, again, legs out from under you. So those are the three big for us. In terms of your mix question, we are definitely shifting to digital. Definitely shifting to digital. You know, we have the benefit, just given the size of marketer we are in the industry, and you know, just for all of us B2B folks, I am not the most significant spend at AT&T. That's definitely our consumer proposition. But when you look at the different approach between consumer and B2B, we are far more digitally centric than our consumer partners are. Not that they aren't pivoting to digital, but just when you look at where their emphasis is, it's very different. And that is purely because that is what works for us. That is where our customers are. That is how our customers are engaging. And that is absolutely positively what converts best for us. It doesn't mean that we're not going to go do some TV. It doesn't mean that we're not going to be at events. It doesn't mean that we're not going to do a full 360 effort. But we have found that if we starve digital, we starve marketing results overall.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I mean, you make a good point, too, about, well, as I think about technology, there's so many different platforms, and every day there's more and more platforms. I'm sure everybody's seen that Chief Martech graphic that since like 2011 has gone from like 50 things to like a gazillion. And it's true. I mean, it's really complex. When I think about our stack, it's really, there's a lot of things we can do. In fact, I was talking to a friend of mine on the phone who's been out of the workforce for about 2 years. You know, was a pretty savvy marketer. And we were talking through things that you can do now with marketing, and she was just like, oh my God, really? And I'm like, yeah, if you can imagine it, or even slightly imagine how data and how behavior and how web trails and other types of trails can be leveraged, people are inventing ways to do it. And what I think is exciting about it is that it's a little bit, you have to leverage different technologies for the benefit they have. So you might not be able to invest in a technology that covers 100% of your customer base or your prospect base, but this technology can really help you hone in on this particular segment or this particular part of the funnel. So yes, make those investments, but always with an eye toward, to your point, bringing those things together. Technologically integrating them so you can understand the influence and impact one has on the other. One of the investments we're doing more and more of is looking at attribution. And so how do we know? You know, we have a sales manager in the Far East who's always asking us, which lead type brought in this deal? And we're like, oh, okay, well, this is the first lead type that brought in the people for that deal, but which lead should be attributed and get the credit? He doesn't see, you know, we have a hard time explaining. Think about yourself. You go to the website, we want you to take a trial, we want you to attend an event like this, we want you to download a white paper, we want you to take a phone call, we want you to do all kinds of stuff because all those things together will influence your prevalence towards Tableau. But sometimes you have people, to your point, is like they really want to say, it was this campaign that made the phones ring. You can't underestimate the importance of being able to measure that, sure. But the facts are people don't make decisions on one thing. I mean, how many people, this is the first time coming here today, you've heard of LinkedIn from an advertising perspective? Not, right? So I'm sure you might have people saying, how many new leads came in today because of this campaign, and in 6 months, how much money did we make because of that one single event? So back to the point about technology and your point, it's like, yeah, get the technology, make the investments. We're continuing to make more and more investments in terms of predictive and attribution and things like that. But go ahead and try the new stuff because you need this subtle, multi-layered approach to really understand what's happening in your prospect base and your customer base.
So let me ask you this question because it's something we definitely, again, on a journey. So we're measuring. Yep. We are building predictive tools. We're building historic tools. We've got, you know, the whole mix modeled. And yet I'll sit in a meeting and somebody will say, I don't believe it.
We were just having this conversation before the meeting.
I can give them the R square of the model we used. Yes. Don't believe it. So how do you ladies think about that and deal with that in a world where it's so easy to say, I didn't invent it?
That's a
and
great
I think
question.
for us, it's really simplifying, and we're on a journey too, in every way we're talking about. But I think it's really simplifying and just making sure you're spending the time to explain the metric. And ideally, I like to evolve the conversation so that you're agreeing on the business goals and metrics, and it's not this kind of around a conference room table of like, what's marketing done, what's sales done. You just lose the context of like the teams working together. And I think you also need to spend the time educating, right? I mean, there are some cross-functional partners for whom they've worked in marketing or they understand it enough to know if people don't have a context for a live event versus a webinar versus content marketing, how are they ever going to, and you're zeroing in on something so specific that you live and breathe, how can they have the context for it? So I think it's an educational process, but I think you do have to, depending on how your company is structured, you've got to really understand as a marketing leader, what is the business impact, right? We can show our dashboards and show them, a mix of green and yellow, hopefully not too red. But then at the end of the day, if marketing's crushing their numbers, but then sales feels behind, right? I mean, like that's an awkward conversation. And so I think you need to be like, here's this pipeline, here's our funnel, how is sales going? And you want to connect the two as much as you can, or else you feel like your metrics exist in a silo and you're just not going to evolve the business.
Yeah, and I have to say, I mean, I really admire both of you. We're a much smaller company, and we have a decent-sized marketing team and a decent-sized sales team in my mind, but for you guys, I can't even imagine. So much more challenging. You get so many more, a cacophony of voices complaining or trying to make a point.
We do get lots of input and feedback.
Yes, I'm sure.
It's a gift, by the way.
It's a gift. Yeah. So I totally appreciate that. I mean, I think for us, we're a data-driven company, kind of grew up digital, and I think for us, if you grow up digital, and LinkedIn in a lot of ways, same thing. Yep. People just tend to think a little, you have the systems from the get-go. Yep. You have the data. People have grown up by making decisions based on data. Now, one of the things we do get that too, like, I don't believe it, and we try to turn the data and the dashboards into not the answer, but this is interesting. So what does that mean with respect to like why salespeople need to make 7 phone calls before they give up? I don't believe it that 7's the right number, even though you can show them in the data like, yeah, if you make 7 phone calls, your probability of reaching a decision maker is like blah, 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 X times, that kind of stuff. I don't believe it. Well, let's talk about that. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about, maybe that's not true for you or true for your team, but what does it mean if it were to be true, and how could we, but it's challenging. I mean, you just get people who just want to be difficult at times.
I'm grateful that you brought up the attribution model question because Allison made me strike that from my list. She's like, please don't bring up attribution
Oh God,
model.
well there's no answer to that.
It's interesting because we were talking those very same words before the conversation today, which is when someone doesn't believe the data, at what point do you just dig a hole, put the attribution model in that hole and call it good and start looking at new ways of directional data? So that's a great segue because we have time for maybe one more question and to hear from you guys on this question, and then we'll open it up to the audience for their questions. We've been talking about marketing, and if you were not from the marketing space or had been under a marketing rock for the last 20 years and just emerged, you would not believe that we're having a conversation about marketing. We're talking about data analysis, we're talking about the technology stack, we're talking about engineering, we're talking about attribution models. So that's a totally different set of skills than I know I entered the marketplace with. Don't tell anybody, my boss especially. But the reality is that everything has really changed. And so what are the skills and the talent that you're looking for now and in the next 5 years to really achieve the modern marketing organization?
That's a great question. For us, I mean, it's just the technology bent to a marketer is so important now. I mean, the old days, like when I started, you could get away with it. You could get away not even having a computer. In fact, I have to admit, when I worked for my first software company, we would go into large financial institutions and they would say, we're ordering our first computer in our department. And these are like major financial institutions. It's like, or I'd get a service call and they'd say, oh, I'm looking at the CRT and it says C:\\caret on the side. What should I do? Now, a lot of you don't even get that, but that's a DOS prompt. That is, it's like technology and marketing. I totally agree. It's fun to think about how far it's come. So I learned it, you learned it, we all learned it. We really look for aptitude. Yes, we want the skills, but we're looking for people who are smart and willing to work hard and have some fun. And that's sort of like my XYZ 3D chart of great people that we want to bring into Tableau. So if you're one of those people, please let us know. We're hiring like crazy. But we really do look at it as like, are you a lifelong learner? Are you a learner? Because what you know today about Marketo or Eloqua in 2 years, you know, it's going to be completely different. You're going to be moving to other types of platforms, and you got to be a lifelong learner and have passion for our business, for our mission. And if you're that, and you're going to want to work hard, we want to talk to you. That's, I don't know, sort of my philosophy anyway.
Yeah, you know, marketing, one of the things I just love about it, and that is what I am, right? I'm not somebody who wants to go run big call centers. I don't want to do truck rolls. I don't want to do installs. I'm a marketer, right? Marketing is art and science, right? And I think we went a lot of years being maybe a little over-indexed on the art, and now we're trying to catch up on the science. But there's a risk in over-indexing on that too, right? And I do think, I love this idea of, you know, being avid learners, that is a core competence that you want in a marketer. You know, I have always felt that one of the things that made marketing a great opportunity and a great challenge is that it's one of those functions that everybody thinks they can do, right? You know, if you look around and you're talking to engineers, engineers know that there's, you know, they're very engineer-like, and they've studied for many years, and there's an approach to that and a process to that. If you talk to somebody in finance, they have, you know, a financial bent to them. Yet both of those organizations will look at you and say, well, certainly I could do marketing. I mean, it's one of those generalist roles. I feel like sometimes we get grouped in, my you know, compadres in HR and I kibitz about this all the time, because HR is another one of those functions where people kind of think anybody can do HR. Anybody can do marketing, right? And I have found that, you know, there is this need in the business to demonstrate not only the competence and skills required to be a marketer, but also to build the case to invest in marketing as a practice, right? So we're actually building a curriculum for marketers. Because what we tend to find, so I have been with AT&T a number of years. Thank you for sharing the starting date. But I have been in marketing for half of my career. I started my career in sales. And when I arrived at the position I have now, I found that what I had a team full of was people who had come from other areas of the business as generalists and landed themselves in marketing, right? Some had been product managers, some had been salespeople. Those were sort of the ones that were closest in to marketing. I had people from the network organization. I had people that, frankly, did not have any of the aptitude or really the willingness to be an avid learner about marketing. So, you know, you need to care for that in terms of, you know, bringing new life and new talent into the organization, but then it's also finding ways to, as I said before, upskill us all. So this curriculum will be required. It is mandatory going forward. We're hoping to launch it in 2016. And it will be a broad curriculum, but also have specialty areas. Does everybody need to be an expert digital marketer? No. But does everybody need to know the fundamentals of digital marketing? Yes, right? So, you know, we're, again, another journey.
Yeah. Yeah, I think from my perspective, a lot of the talent strategy comes down to kind of where your team and your business is and the evolution and then your strategy and how you're really going to differentiate your business and what are the tactics ultimately you're going to bring to market. LinkedIn talent's our absolute #1 priority, not just to accelerate our business, but we expend a ton of time working on professional development within the company, but then recruiting cross-functional roles and partners. So people kind of are very invested in talent across the board. And for me, I go back and forth between when you need generalists and kind of when you need specialists. And so when I was building the team, it was very much the generalists, like who are the athletes who can construct a narrative, work with sales teams, kind of get some content live and kind of get the foundation poured was fundamental, right? And so as you have a 6 to 10 person team, you know, you can do a lot with kind of some great generalists that are just really effective communicators. And ultimately, your team needs to have a passion for the problems you're trying to solve. On the specialist side, when we shifted to content marketing as a major part of our go-to-market strategy and place of investment 2 years ago, we kind of looked around the team. We have awesome generalists who can frame a problem, get it all the way there. It's like, no, we need to accelerate parts of your strategy. You will probably need specialists, right? You'll need people that are digital natives, content natives, who can take something from 0 to 100 in a quarter, not 6 quarters, because you probably can't take 6 quarters to kind of grow a new strategy. So I think it goes back in between how you think about it. But I agree that you don't also want to end up with an org with lots of siloed specialists, because then you don't have kind of this cross-team pollination. You get these very siloed organizations that are awesome at the one thing they're being asked to do, but it's not the way you scale and leverage a team. And at the end of the day, I do agree it's about passion and very much attitude and aptitude. Like, we've all worked with people that potentially have what it takes, but if they're not rising to the challenge, they're not that curious about trying to solve problems externally or internally, it's a negative kind of impact on your whole team.
The other thing you said that I just stuck with me was, having fun.
Yeah.
We talk a lot, on my team about this idea that, look, people who are attracted to marketing are generally attracted to marketing because they find something really stimulating and fun about it. If you find yourself as part of a team who is having no fun at marketing, there's something really wrong. And you really need to go examine what's going on, whether that is something cultural happening, whether that is something silo-based happening, whether that is something skill set happening, but it should be fun.
Yeah, 100% agree. I mean, it's so much about the culture and, being part of that culture, contributing to it, just all that is so critical. The curriculum, though, that is really important. I agree. We're starting that, too, because we're realizing, you can only go so far in generalists. You need to have specialists, but those specialists and those generalists, like across sales and marketing, they need to have a healthy respect for how they interact with each other and how we produce the results we produce. And part of that is a respectful, fun environment that people can rise to their best, do their best work. I'm always telling people, if you come to Tableau, I want these years for you, however long you're here, to be the years you look back on and you go, those are the best years of my career. I was the best marketer I could be. Because if you're feeling that, if you feel that while you're working there, you're probably doing awesome work. And if you're doing awesome work, you're probably producing, if we've got you on the right thing, awesome results. And so I think it's a lot about the fun and the culture and the commitment.
That positivity feeds on itself, and it's
Yeah,
how
it's
you
crazy,
attract the best talent.
Yeah,
For me, we built most of our 50-person team over the last 3 years. And so that acceleration has been massive, and we've taken people, in some cases, with very limited experience, and they have taken off. As a result, they become some of the more valued talent that other companies also want on their teams, and some of them transition out, and they get, they've 10x their careers in the 2 years here, and it's always, I'm extremely sad on one hand to lose a star, and then in other cases, it's like, this is an awesome story of kind of the impact of what, if you have a high-performing team, people do get a chance to kind of do things that they've never done, and I think that's like, the talent brand of your organization is crucial.
Yeah. I think the key there is if you build the talent on your team, even if you can't retain them, at least you've become an expert at exporting brilliant talent, and that speaks volumes for your brands as well. So we could talk for hours. I'd love to dig into the whole art and science thing because I'm passionate about that as well. But we have about 11 minutes left, and so I want to make sure that you guys get a chance to ask this group up here. I mean, it's access to some incredible marketing intelligence. So let's open it up to the audience for questions. There's got to be some out there. I hope. There's one back there if we want to get a microphone to the gentleman back there. If you want to stand up, put you on the spot.
Hi there.
Hey.
There we go. Hear me?
Yep.
So with LinkedIn and some of the more modern techniques around, Twitter and Facebook, LinkedIn, when you're doing your marketing, and you guys mentioned it a few times about sometimes you need to catch people in the early funnel and start a conversation with them. How are you measuring that? What specific metrics are you using, and how do you help justify that investment?
I mean, I think starting for us, like most of our spend is digital. We spend on in-person events and other experiences, but for the core of our investments, and more than half of our leads come through kind of always on channels like content. And so the way that we don't spend, I guess we think about the spend all the way through the funnel. So it's not like we have just one distinct strategy for awareness or one distinct strategy for lead gen. We're trying to understand how do we engage a group of segments and kind of evaluating all the way through. But I think since we're so digital heavy, we'll look at things like how are we increasing, our uniques? Are we increasing the time they're spending across our channels? Are we increasing how they engage with us, on all the social channels where we have a presence? And ultimately, are those the right people, right? I mean, for a brand like ours and a business of our size, we still have a pretty specific group of people. And so you can generate lots of awareness, but if it's not the right group of people, it's kind of all for naught. So we triangulate mainly a group of online metrics around engagement to get to that number. Obviously, we'll measure NPS on products and events, and where we can get those other measures, it's great. We also spend a lot of time investing in voice of the customer and doing a lot of validation work and spending time with our customers getting feedback. And so we take a lot of that qualitative feedback, which to us is just gold. And you need that context to supplement and complement all of the online data you have to paint the full picture.
Yeah, it is a really, really tough question. What we've been doing is really thinking about it along the lines of the marketing funnel. So if you do, awareness, preference, consideration, usage, and sort of back into ways to value what I'll just call, pick one, a point of consideration. And you designate certain types of engagement to suggest that that customer or potential customer now has a higher degree of consideration for your brand than they did before engaging in that way, and trying to give that some kind of either weight or financial value. The other thing it helps us do, whether or not that attribution, because it all comes back to attribution, right? Whether that attribution is 100% right or not, it gives you a relative way to think about needing to drive awareness and engagement versus drive sales. Because I'll just speak for myself and our culture, we are very focused on driving volume. We want to drive sales. And it's easy to lose sight of the investments you need to make in upper funnel to get down to lower funnel. And a lot of what you were referencing, social, digital, are really today primarily for us upper funnel, right? We've yet to crack the code really on using them systemically as sales vehicles per se. So that's how we've been thinking about it. We do have metrics for each of those, but again, if they weren't going to believe my ROI models, you got to sit through a conversation on that.
But then how does your consumer team, the consumer team gets a hall pass a little bit? Or
it's just a very, for it all being one company, and we are one brand, we're a branded house. And we are, a wireless company at our heart. It's more transactional, right? And yes, you want to engage with the consumer, but I think by and large, we think about that more in terms of over a lifespan versus in the context of an individual sale. Whereas, go back to my example, if I'm trying to sell a very large private network, 400 locations, these are not the kinds of sales you're going to make in an afternoon by visiting one of our stores. And I have the utmost respect for the professionals that work in our stores. It's just very, very different, right? So I think it's just different in terms of how we look at those metrics. They look at them, but I think in a slightly different context.
For us, with respect to content and recognizing its value, it's really important to consider where that content belongs in the funnel. So a white paper that is really deeply technical, if you try to measure it at the top, like how many people downloaded it, and that means it's valuable, you know what? You're just going to make the wrong decision. But if you measure it where it belongs, deeper in the funnel, like how many people were exposed to it, and then how many people downloaded it, and then did they read it? You can actually get information about that. So we look at metrics like that, but we're always looking at it in the context of the funnel. And one of the other things we really focus on is, at each stage of the funnel, the goal is make me smarter. Because when you think about why you go to the web or you go to companies, bottom line is, shopping and porn aside, people are on the web because they want to be smarter. So we want you to come to our site, and if you're at the top of the funnel or above our funnel, and you find us or you find an article, and we want to make you smarter about the value of visual analytics. We don't even have to necessarily mention Tableau, because if you get into that piece of content, you're probably going to discover Tableau. So our next thing is a little bit more about the value of visual analytics and the 5 principles we say drive how to make the most out of visual analytics. So now you're a little bit exposed to our philosophy. And it just keeps going down until it gets to, oh my gosh, you're ready to buy, now you need customer references, you need customer testimonials. But if we tried too hard to put that testimonial at the top, where they talk about how great Tableau is, it's just it's not making you smarter. You're not ready for it. It's not, it doesn't help you. And it's going to be a piece of content that's going to look not useful, not valuable at that stage of the funnel. So trying to keep our eyes on like why we produce this piece of content and what kind of metric matters to reflect that goal is something that we spend time on, but it's hard, it's challenging. I mean, the good news is there's so much stuff that leads trails now. There's so much data. You can look at a huge range of data and get ideas, and that can help guide your decisions, even if it's not perfect data or perfect information.
Well, being useful is such an important framing.
Yeah,
Such
yeah.
an important framing.
Yeah.
You don't go online with the express purpose of being marketed to?
Yeah.
Are there any other
I prefer when
questions?
people call my cell phone.
Yes.
I prefer that.
Anybody else with questions? Because this is a great topic. Yes, right over here. If you want to get a microphone. Because I could talk for hours about that too.
Thank you. So you've all made some really good points about the buyer's journey, but one that I think you omitted is how it evolves depending on the geographical location of your target audience, especially in a global context, right? So I'm curious to know how, respectively as marketing leaders, you tailor your marketing to capture demand in or from foreign markets.
Great question. Who wants to tackle that one first?
I'll start.
Okay,
Sure.
yeah.
I think one example is the difference we find between North America buyers and the path and the content they're looking for, and Western European buyers, and in particular marketing to a UK audience, where when we've done testing on a new website and a whole new infrastructure that we're launching, and even when we have the field sales team out in market, we see a similar dynamic where in the UK in particular, and larger brands buying Pan-EMEA, they are completely motivated and will only really engage with you around thought leadership to start. There's like not a pitch. There's not, if you kind of start with a product pitch or something very specific deeper in the funnel, people kind of switch off. Like it's just, there's a nature of dialogue and exchange and kind of time to get a story. You need to lead with, I think, even more of a story and something that is inherently kind of tethered to your brand. I think what we find, depending on, it's hard to generalize, obviously a large market like the US, but we find that in the US in certain segments, people, at least in some cases, have an understanding of LinkedIn and they're like, get to it. You know what I mean? Yes, I want to see the insights, but like, what do you have? Does it fit what I need? Is it going to work in my system? So we find that, and even how our sales team works in the UK, we find them, you know, obviously you spend all this time on this beautiful deck for your sales team. They're like, oh, we don't use it. We just go to the whiteboard. And we're like, awesome. You know, we won't work on it next time. But they want to go to the whiteboard and have this very engaging discussion. And we find that in some cases, US buyers, you know, you get a 30-minute window and it's like, let's go. What do you've got? You know, so I just think we have to think about what different markets need. Obviously, it's always, we try to be really strategic about it and tier those markets so you can get more leverage, but you do have to listen to that feedback.
So in our business, globally, what we strive to do is serve customers where we can best serve them. And the reason I say that is because in a business like ours, footprint, what we would call footprint, or where I can serve you, matters. So there are certain geographies where I am better equipped to do that based on where I have infrastructure already built than in others. Doesn't mean we can't serve worldwide enterprises, but really it's better for the customer and certainly better for us in terms of relationship with those markets if we're selective, right? So that's the first thing I would say. So understanding whatever that dynamic is for your business is clearly really important. What we find, though, is similar, much more relationship-oriented. So I'll give you just an example. To your point about bang, 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 I've got 30 minutes. We find events, as an example, to be very, very strong marketing tools for us globally. Come build a relationship with me, have a conversation with me. It's not nearly as transactional as we tend to find it is in the US, as one. And I think even more so, it is the usefulness of what that relationship, much more about tips and tools, things to consider, than we would typically find in the US.
Yeah, I agree. We find, well, for sure, we have a dynamic that is, we're US-based. We've been more successful here sooner. People know us better. So as we market internationally in EMEA and APAC and LATAM, we're in a different stage. So we have to go to market considering that. Like, where are we? Like what you pointed out about your footprint, it's kind of the same thing. What's our footprint? What's our awareness? So when we go to market by country or by region, we take that into account, because there's no point yakking about Tableau if you don't really know the value of analytics or the value of visual analytics or how we can help you solve those problems. So we take it differently based on evolution of the market, particularly in our context. But also, same, I mean, with relationships.
Yeah.
EMEA, even APAC, LATAM, events are effective. It's a relationship creation. Often they are working through partners more than within customers here work through partners. So of course, internationally, having great partner programs and engaging them in your marketing process is more important, or more critical, I shouldn't say more important, but more critical for our international audiences than it is here in the US. Of course, we support our partners here, but we get more business with our partners. They're just that people are more accustomed to buying through partners in EMEA, APAC, and LATAM. Yeah, so pretty consistent, I would say. Yeah.
Do we have any other questions? We've got time for one more from the group. Oh, there's got to be one more out there.
If not, I'm sure you have one.
Well, actually, I don't have a short one, though. That's the unfortunate thing. The thing that oh, there's one. Saved from a long question. Do you have a microphone?
Really, really informative. If you think back about the lifelong learning or the continuous improvement, if you look back to June 2014, now we're a year later, any regrets or major ahas you had about a decision or the marketing approach you took that you would have done differently if you knew now what you knew then? Vice versa.
That's a great question.
I have to recuse myself, because I've been at Tableau 7 years now, or 8 years, whatever. I can't even tell you. And honestly, things have. I can't remember. A year ago? Was that a year ago, or was that like 5 years ago? Sometimes I'll say to one of my team members, "Oh, I remember that campaign. Didn't we do that like 2 years ago?" And they'll be like, "That was last month." And other times I'll be like, "Wow, we should resurrect that program, blah, blah, blah. Wasn't that about 5 years ago?" They'll be like, "Again, that was last month." I can't think back. But I definitely, one thing I would say is, if you're growing, hire fast, bring people in, get the help you need, and then the technology investments. Just keep your thumb and your finger on like, what is the art of the possible. When you're smaller, it was easier to keep up with that, because you're like hungry, scratching for, what the hell, how are we going to make a difference? And as you get a little bigger, it's a little easier to fall into your regular patterns, and you're thinking about scale, and you're not thinking about the next thing. So I guess I would say, gosh, what are we doing to make sure that our thumb is at the edge, keeping up with what are the new trends, what are the new stuff. Fortunately, we have a great marketing operations team with really brilliant technology strategists in charge of it that keeps us up to date. But there's stuff we miss, and I'm like, wow, we should be leveraging that. So I guess I would say that the technology is like, just always be watching, because there's new stuff, and you want to be the marketer that zigs first. Before everybody else ruins it and makes people skeptical about it. You want to be the marketer that's the first one to leverage it. So I don't know.
So I think for me, it's about reductionism, right? So the essence of strategy is choice. I feel like one of the opportunities I have is to drive more choices. We want to do everything. And our business, really wants us to do everything, and we want to be successful in all areas. But I think if your marketing strategy is grounded on doing everything, then you're going to struggle. So I think, over the past year, if identify the thing, it would probably be, having had more specific choices and stuck to them.
Yeah, I think on our side, one more tactical example would be around utilizing nurture much more as a strategy, much more effectively. We built this awesome content marketing machine, and I think we were kind of, before we merged with the amazing talented team from Bizzo, we were just kind of getting started with more our marketing automation as being core to what we do, and nurture techniques. I think there was absolutely missed opportunities kind of at the top of the funnel and re-engaging with people, and kind of had leaky parts of our funnel for sure. And I think we were focused on other parts of our strategy, and we had a lot of our revenue coming from existing customers. So customer marketing and product marketing was a central part of the team. And so I think that was something that, again, it's always this balancing of kind of how are you leaning forward, and how are you kind of keeping the current business. But I think you need to push on that tension harder.
That's a really good point, because the best leads are always the ones that come to you on their time frame, on their needs. And sometimes we get obsessed with like, oh, we got to get more,
Right,
or
exactly.
you know, staying focused, but more, we're growing, we need to grow. So that's a really good point I think you make about like the inbound aspect.
Who do you have, you know?
Who do you have? How are
Yeah.
you nurturing them? Are you delivering content that's meaningful to them? If they're giving you signals they're not interested, don't bug them. 5 more emails isn't going to do it. You know? So I think it's a really good point.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
I think that is a wonderful place to conclude our session. I want to thank Elissa, Alicia, and Allison. And just if you want to trick later after a couple cocktails, try and say those 3 names in a row together. But thank you so much for sharing your insights and your expertise with this group today. It has been an absolute pleasure to share the stage with you. So everybody, I would like to give them a round of applause.
Thank you.